So I'm going to give my one piece of advice for the afternoon is never have your picture taken the night or the morning after you've gone out. I saw this and realized very, very quickly that that was a bad idea. And where I'll do this for. So I appreciate the opportunity to spend 15 or 20 minutes just talking about Mitel and where we see things changing from a workplace point of view. And the first thing I'm going to try to do is just give it's always interesting when you meet different people and you say, I wonder where this guy is coming from or where's the accent, and just a little bit of background. So I'll ask, does anybody know where that is? And some of you know me, so don't answer. So this is about an hour's flight away. It's Galway. It's the west coast of Ireland. I've lived there for the last 25 or 30 years. My career, I grew up working in Nortel for 13 or 14 years in the centre in Galway, and I was really blessed with that experience. The one downside of living in Galway is people refer to it as the graveyard of ambition. And the reason it's referred to as the graveyard of ambition is simply because once you're there, people tend not to leave. But I've been very, very fortunate. I had 13 really, really happy years working in Nortel. And then I ended up moving to, actually before I joined Nortel, I got a chance to go to Boston. I went to Boston University and I played a bit of football. And I ended up I must have been one of the few Irishmen that fell in love with the game of baseball. A good friend of mine ran the executive boxes in Fenway. And he was, I ended up being a member of what association over there called the Big Brother Association, which was a charity. And one of the best experiences of my life was being able to take my little brother, who was about 13, who introduced me to this game which I knew nothing about. And he says, you got to go to Fenway and we got to run the bases. We got to run around the bases. And I had no clue. I had no idea. But I was fortunate that I got that opportunity and that experience, because about 25 years later, I met my little brother, who now runs a restaurant in Chicago. And we talked about that experience. And you might wonder, why is a guy from Galway and Mitel talking about baseball, and where does that connection come in? About a year and a half ago, after I went from Nortel to a company called Brocade, which worked in kind of storage area networking, and into Juniper. About a year and a half ago, I got a phone call from Mitel. And I said, Dave, would you have any interest in joining Mitel to run the international marketing team? And I said, no, thanks. He says, no, maybe just listen to, the pitch about what Mitel is. And I sat and I listened, and, I heard about the fact that, unified communications company, contact center, both in the cloud and on premise. But what really hooked me on Mitel was the opportunity to work with a company that really focused a lot on high-performance organizations. So the baseball piece came in because we were the principal sponsor of the London series in the Olympic Stadium in June, where the Boston Red Sox played the New York Yankees. And again, we were, as a company, asked the question, would you have any interest in being the sponsor of Major League Baseball coming to London? And your initial response would be, I'm not really sure that that's going to be the greatest thing in the world to do for a UK or European audience. And Mitel is Major League Baseball sponsor globally. But we took a chance and we said we would. And the reason we decided to do it was the first time that something was going to be done. It was the first time that this sport was going to end up in the Olympic Stadium. And it was the first real opportunity that we had, not the first, but it was a real opportunity for us as a company to be able to use a solution in an actual live environment, which was going to be broadcast to the world. So as a marketing guy, I said, we have to do this. We've got to do this. And it was an incredible experience. And the other logo up there, which causes me a lot of angst at times, is I read a really interesting story. Well, I'm not sure if it was interesting. It was interesting to me. I read a story in the paper flying out here, and it was talking about football. And it was saying that one of the big issues with international football right now, especially in the Republic of Ireland, is that, first of all, we're muck. And secondly, nobody cares. Most of the people in Ireland support either Liverpool or Manchester United. and would probably want Liverpool to win the league versus Ireland qualifying for the European Championships. I probably wouldn't be on that page, but anyhow. So Mitel had an opportunity to be the unified communications partner for Liverpool. And you can probably see where this is going, because I'm an avid Manchester United fan. And I had to spend time with Liverpool and do the launch of that and convince myself that, hey, this is good for us and it's good for the brand. And what I will say is, I'm never going to lie and say I've become a Liverpool fan. But what I have become, oh my God, what an incredible organization Liverpool Football Club is. It just blows me away. Their attention to detail, the focus on analytics of the players, of performance, their focus on the community, their focus on the ethos of what the culture means to the club. And it just had a phenomenal effect on me. And for us as an organization, Mitel, to be associated with that company was just something that we could not say no to. So that's just a bit of a preamble to a conversation just for 10 or 15 minutes about, I don't know if it's near or dear to our hearts, work, but it's something we, I nearly said unfortunately, it's something we have to do. And in my case, I do it because I love to do other stuff. I mean, I love working for Mitel, but I love to do other stuff. And the first picture kind of showed you the west coast of Ireland, and that's about 15 minutes from where I actually live. And I spend a lot of time on a plane. I spend a lot of time in an office opposite the church in a little village in Clarenbridge, which is outside of Galway. And that is my workspace. It's not my workplace because there's nobody else there. There's 2 or 3 empty offices beside me. Sometimes somebody else uses them. But I've got a fantastic broadband connection. It's 5 minutes from my house. It just gives me what I need, and it's 45 minutes from Shannon Airport. So the definition of my place of work completely changed from when I was working with 1,000 people in Nortel in Galway in 1996 to where I am today, which is sitting in an office remotely on the west coast of Ireland. And again, on a plane journey, I saw a movie and it really hit home to me around what we're seeing changing in terms of the way that we work. And this movie deals with a really challenging topic. It's Spotlight. It's all about the Boston Globe and how they unearthed some of the things that were happening with the church. But what hit home to me watching this movie was it showed the inside workings of the Boston Globe back in 20-odd years ago. And there was an individual, and he was pushing the files up to the researcher, and the researcher would go and pick out the files and put it in the cart, and they'd go and deliver this, and the reporters were probably working on what looked like Commodore 64s. Mobile phones were just about there, but the research was done in the library. And again, it struck me. I said, my goodness, how that world has completely and utterly changed. I mean, the media landscape is completely different to what we have seen 20 years ago to today. This is more like a typical work environment today. And you'll see a stat in a moment about 80% of individuals now are deskless. 80% of the workforce, which is nearly 2.8 billion people, they do not have a physical place of work. So if I look at this UPS guy or the delivery person who comes to me in Galway, he typically will look for the signature on some form of device. He knows where I live, he's tracked it, he gets my air code, and he finds me. He may, if he's lost, may make a phone call. But it has become pretty much an automated experience end to end. And that's happened, that hasn't happened just overnight. I mean, in Mitel we spend a lot of time looking at, and don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with all the details about the various different things that have happened, but we spend a lot of time looking at how work has evolved, and more importantly, what can we do to help companies or individuals to use the tools, use the information, use the data, because it's challenging and it's complex. And we have a firm view that we're kind of gone through these various different cycles, and where we find ourselves today, if you look at the cyber-physical world that we exist in, which we may call the fourth industrial revolution of work or whatever it may be, but it's come around from 4 different things. It's come around from not just mobile phones, but 5G, 4 and 5G. the ability to have pretty much ubiquitous broadband access onto a device when and where you need it. That is massive. The data flows that go in. Compute access, but specifically access to the device in your hand or the device in your car, or wherever it may be, in terms of being able to get information to something that allows you to be mobile at any particular point in time. The third is the cloud. I'm sure everybody has spoken about the cloud. The most important thing, if you ask me about the cloud, is access to information on any device at any time. Any information at any time that you can access. And last, but certainly not least, the growing world around artificial intelligence and marine intelligence, or machine intelligence. I'm sure the marine animals in Galway are safe, but machine intelligence, which you couple those together, and what it really brings you into is a world where we feel that there's a lot of fear that automation is going to eliminate all of our jobs. It's simply not going to happen. Time and time it's been proven that what automation will do is when you see lots of automation coming in, there is an immediate dip when it comes to jobs, but over a period of time, which is typically 18 months to 3 years, the automation or the intelligence actually helps and moves you forward. So where will it go? Where, the big crystal ball question, and you can Google all of this information, but Gartner have a really interesting view on what has happened in what we call work and what will happen over the next 15 years. And there's probably two different scenarios. One scenario is that we readily accept the interaction with machines, with intelligence, or with bots, or whatever it is that you want to call them. And they augment the experience, not just in work, but in our life. And they become more and more trusted. They take over a lot of those menial tasks, the repetitious tasks. And that's probably the most likely scenario. There's another more doomsday type scenario, if you look out to 2035, by which we, in other words, humans, lose our control over machines and intelligence in whatever form that will be. And we end up in situations which a couple of things might happen. You think about air traffic control, fairly much an automated experience except for the conversation between the pilot and the ATC, is that something dramatic happens because of a failure in technology, and we decide that we cannot rely on that technology anymore, or the machine takes over and you end up in a far darker space. Now, I'm not up here to say that that is what's going to happen, but I do think that each and every one of us, the amount of time we spend at work that fuels our life, there are definitely scenarios that we would actively look at and think about the way that we use communication and collaboration as we think through those scenarios. So we've kind of entered this world by which we're working, we're beginning to see intelligence coming into every single thing that we do. And again, if I can click forward on this, but some of the stats that we've mentioned, 80% of the workforce being deskless. For those of you that are sitting here either as a partner or as an end user customer, the 95% statistic I think is very compelling, and I know Natalie will hint on this as well, which is the experience that you have as you interact with a company. 95% of that is fueled in some way by some form of intelligence that's artificial. It's not human. So you think about a simple example. If you go on a website today, and I decide that I'm going to Google Celtic Manor because I've just won 2 tickets for it, next time you go on Facebook, if they're smart enough about it, you should be tracked. And the first thing that will come up is, bing, 2 night stay in Celtic Manor for $49.50 or whatever it is. Click here. And you click here, and you may never have a human experience. You may never have an experience because you can book it and you can drive it. And I think that's really, really mad. And I'll tell one other quick story because I'll probably run out of time, which is Hilton. I stay in Hiltons pretty much all over the world. And while I love part of the experience, there's another part of the experience which I don't really like. So I can book using the app. Get the price, do the comparison. The day before, it'll tell me select the room, again on the app. I'll select the room, I'll check in on the app. I can order my food on the app, and I can check out in the app. never have to have a conversation if I don't want to have a conversation. And again, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of goodness in that, but I also think we need to be slightly careful in relation to the way that we continue to have that human experience and augment that experience with technology. And one of the things was we kind of questioned the 80% piece. We said, that just sounds like, is it really, really true that 80% of the workforce is deskless? And you look at the numbers, and again, for us sitting in this audience, we may say, a lot of us are working in technology fields. We may not necessarily have much interaction with the agricultural sector or the logistics sector or the transportation sector. But very, very quickly, all of those use cases come to the fore. So that 2.7 or 2.8 billion people who don't sit anywhere for work, you think of the opportunity that that provides in relation to somebody making a decision on what are they going to invest into and what are they going to spend, specifically around communication or collaboration or the experience using technology. And what we're finding is that there's a couple of key drivers. One is productivity. Without a doubt, augment productivity so that you've got the greatest level of information, you can be predictive in the conversation, and you can drive that. But the other thing that's becoming more and more important is the experience. And it's not just the experience from the customer's point of view, it's the experience from the employee. And I can't strongly recommend enough as you think through your own environments about using intelligence or using automation, is really to think through the experience of the employee and what difference that's making. Because whether we like it or not, there is a huge amount of money, billions and billions being invested, and that number will just skyrocket over the next year, over the next years in relation to investments into intelligence, automation, and technology. And I apologize that I can't move over this way because I need to stay on this side. So let me quickly talk about two partners that Mitel works with and some of the things that they're looking to create. The first is, I'm not even sure how many miles it is from here, but North London, so Tottenham Hotspur. The most incredible football stadium I have ever seen. I just think this is mind-boggling. It took me a long time to figure out why the green grass here became not green grass slightly to the sideline. And it wasn't until we went there that we realized that the actual pitch goes underneath the main terrace or the main stand. This piece disappears because that's where the NFL football players stand. And it has to be deep enough that if you're sitting on the front row, you can still look over the helmet of the player and see the field. But what Tottenham Hotspur have asked us to do is to take a look at the fan experience. Take a look at all of the communications and technology. So if I'm a consumer walking into White Hart Lane, there's no cash. The experience from when I move, if I use the Spurs app, from the train to a parking space to spending money to having their own brewery on site, is all around augmenting and being automated for a couple of different reasons. One is money, no doubt about that. But the second is to drive an experience from the fan that's seamless. And as you go through that, you capture information upon information. The second is Liverpool. And Liverpool, who, it's a slightly different stadium. It's been there an awful lot longer than the new White Hart Lane. But Liverpool are on the exact same journey. And the piece that they're asking Mitel is, can you help us, not with communications and phone calls and contact centers, can you help us with the experience that we're trying to create? The experience for the fan. Not so long ago, if you called into the Liverpool's ticket office, after 30 seconds, the number would just stop ringing. They hadn't invested into the contact center or the customer experience piece. All that is changing now. But as a club, and again, if anybody's in every chance, if you're into sports and the analytics of sports, Google a guy by the name, I think it's Ian Graham, who is the head of analytics for Liverpool Football Club. My goodness, what a fascinating individual this is in terms of he can tell you at any pace in time why it's worth 50 million to buy Jonathan versus 4 million to buy Dave because of the movement on the pitch, the future transfer value, how they will perform. But Liverpool are really on a journey of taking it not just from an experience within the stadium. They're looking at the 70 million and whatever billion Liverpool football fans are out there, to have a seamless and continuous connection with those individuals as fans so that they can experience Liverpool from anywhere in the world. So to kind of wrap this up, so, Dave, you've talked about, you live in the west coast of Ireland, you're a remote worker, you talked about all the things that are happening in terms of automation and the experiences and some of the customers that you work with. What we're being asked, not what we're driving, what we're being asked by our customers is, it's got to be a ubiquitous experience. It cannot just be about one point of contact. It can't be about multiple points of contact, in other words, an email or a phone call or a chat box. It has to be an omni experience in terms of you have got to integrate everything into that experience. So if I have one interaction with Hilton or with Liverpool or with Spurs, not only is that action remembered, we can predict what the next likely action is going to be, the experience that you want either virtually. In other words, I'll never go to a game, but I'm really interested in Liverpool because I really want them to win. Or when I physically go there, it remembers that, Dave, you've been here for the last 15 games. We want to acknowledge that fact. Because where Mitel as a company is moving, and I promise this is the wrap-up, it's 2 slides, where we are being moved, not because we necessarily want to move, R&D, investment, engineering, where we are being forced to move as a company because of the need of the customer, is away from a world where we provide call control, which was the old PBXs, collaboration, which might have been instant messaging or some form of whiteboarding, contact center, which again, was a very simple experience for quite a long time. We're being absolutely fundamentally being moved away from this experience into really creating just a completely different ecosystem built on innovation and the experience. And again, if you take a look at some of the work that we're trying to do as a company, it's really focused on working with an ecosystem in the world of containerization, so whether that's Dockers or Kubernetes, and all, everybody gets lost in containerization. What does this really mean? But the ability for a partner or a customer or somebody setting up a new business to create an app with its own operation system in there makes life so much simpler. Working with providers like Google and AWS so that in years gone by, if you needed a data center to collect data and to move data, you were physically looking for a data center that could move data from A to B. The work that Google are doing, not just on the analytics side, but on their cloud platforms in AWS, has literally changed the data center world in relation to access to information in real time. So we're moving from, we look at a very simple call control, PBX control, contact center collaboration, into a really, really, really diverse world. And what that forces us to do, and I'll just build this out and I'll leave it at this, is that entire experience is created by the customer's need, however they come in. Whether that's Dave on the app, whether it's making a phone call, which it rarely ever is, using technology like NLP, which is the understanding of language. So gone are the days of us having to worry about translation typically in a world, because an awful lot of that has been automated for us. And again, is that good? I think it's very, very powerful, because it allows the agent to augment the experience that you need based on the data, based on analytics, based on predictive behavior. But we should never forget the left-hand side of this, which is, I'm going to come up with a new marine intelligence. Machine intelligence and automation, it augments the experience. It makes it, is it more effective? It absolutely is. Is there concerns that it's going to doomsday, get rid of all our jobs? It's not going to happen. What will happen, we firmly believe, is that you'll have a more seamless experience. It'll become more personalized. You'll have opportunities to communicate and collaborate in ways that we have not even imagined. And the last comment I'd make is just to Britannic and the team, platinum partner of Mitel. We've worked with each other for a long time. It's a real opportunity and a pleasure for us to have an opportunity to talk about life in Galway and Liverpool and Spurs and what's happening. It's been a pleasure, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the afternoon. So thanks for your time. It's very much appreciated. Okay?